Assalamu alaikum everyone, I'm Aska. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you my personal journey of how I became a Muslim. Around 18 months ago, I reverted to Islam. It's quite incredible looking back, because honestly, if you had asked me a few months earlier that I would become Muslim in the near future, I probably wouldn't have believed you. Life really has its way of surprising us. I would like to share this in the hope that it will be helpful to somebody in one way or another, and I hope you can enjoy it. So here's my story. If you've been watching my channel, you might know that I was born in Japan, in the countryside, raised as a typical Japanese girl. For some reason, I was always interested in going abroad and discovering different cultures since I was little. When I first had the chance as a student, I lived in China, and later I would go to the UK. Not too long after that, I spent 3.5 years in Frankfurt, Germany for my career as well. And until now, I've been lucky enough to travel to over 40 countries. This made me think that I kinda knew the world already, and I thought I was open-minded as well. And even when it came to Islam, I thought I had a good idea about it because I had visited Islamic countries before, and even when I was at uni in Japan, I attended a lecture about the diversity of Islam. But what I thought I knew changed completely and very suddenly. I recently listened to stories of a few reverts online, and some of them have talked about how they studied Islam for many years or had a spiritual awakening and became Muslim after that. Very beautiful stories, and I found them amazing as well. But that was not how I found Islam. I was raised as a kid surrounded in a typical Japanese environment connected to Shintoism and Buddhism. When it came to God or something spiritual, Yao Yorozu no Kami, which means land of 8 million gods, came first. It doesn't mean that there are literally 8 million gods, but it's a way of expressing that spirits or gods, called kami-sama in Japanese, are everywhere, like in the trees or on the mountains, on the river, and so on. And growing up in Japan, it's not something I had to think about much. Although I was always interested in something spiritual and liked visiting shrines and temples, and I also believed God's presence was everywhere. But I didn't feel any need to go questioning or searching my religion further. Everything changed when I met the man who would later become my future husband. It's the classic story, isn't it? Girl meets boy. We met at a bouldering gym and something just clicked. I would say a rare kind of connection. But despite the good impressions, it was not going to be straightforward. He was clear from the beginning that he is Muslim, faithful, and not interested in dating. At first I thought, oh, he must be kidding. But he explained that in Islam, it is a common practice to not have a relationship until marriage. I was really surprised, like, wow, that's a very new perspective for me, and how does this even work? The concept of boyfriend and girlfriend is so normal in Japan. I think most of us have never imagined any other way to get married. There were so many questions for me. And if I can be totally honest with you, in those early days, I actually wished he was not Muslim. The idea of the religion seems very distant, and at the time it was difficult to see Islam as part of my future. In Japan, religious values that aren't from Shintoism or Buddhism are quite a foreign concept. Islam felt like something exotic and far away. And on the surface, I just assumed that our traditions and ways of living would clash. For example, I had always imagined my life partner would be someone I could share a cold beer or a glass of wine with. And of course, one thing most of us know is that Muslims don't drink alcohol. I still remember asking him many times back then, like, oh, you really never drank alcohol? Is there any possibility for you to drink just once? You might like it. Maybe only with my family and friends because they love drinking. Oh, but he had zero interest in doing this, and he just had complete trust in his faith. So my first instinct was actually from a place of fear. I was worried that his religion would be too alien for me and take away all the freedoms I had. I also thought I would have to also give up my Japanese identity as well, like from Japanese food or our social drinking culture, respecting other religious views and celebrations, and especially the religious values that I learned from my grandparents. So at that time, my attitude was like, oh, there is no way I can be Muslim. It's not for me at all. But at the same time, I was left with a big dilemma. This man I met had such a positive nature that left an impression on me. I saw that he was very honest and patient, and he was particularly kind. I could also sense that he had a deep peace inside of him, and it was clear that Islam had played a big role in shaping his character. When thinking about this, I couldn't just stop here, so I decided to spend more time learning about Islam at a deeper level, instead of just talking to him about how essential eating pork and drinking alcohol were for me. To my surprise, the more time we got to know each other, the more I found that we are not completely alien to each other. In fact, there are many similarities between Islam and Japanese culture that I didn't know. I shared some of these last year in my video, where I talked about shared values on cleanliness, ritual washing, and expressing gratitude during meals, or recently about the art and calligraphy. It's quite interesting to discover because I had never looked at Islam in that way. Another thing I learned was that although I had been worrying mostly about giving up food and alcohol, what really matters in Islam are deeper core values, such as putting our full trust in God or being sincere in our actions. Those values were very natural to me as well. And eventually I started to feel that sharing those values with a life partner would matter far more than obsessing over a glass of wine or beer. My husband also had his doubts about whether I knew enough about Islam to understand what it meant to be a Muslim, and whether I could revert from my heart or not. His advice was to discover more and actually experience the Islamic way of life before taking any further steps. So I did that and started by signing up to attend classes at the mosque in Tokyo, which offered regular lessons in Japanese. I also met the Imam and asked for his opinions about the similarities between Islam and Japanese religions. But of course, there is only so much you can learn from classes, books, and discussions. So to test myself, I took time out to visit Malaysia and immerse myself in an Islamic environment. I'm really grateful I made this decision because it had a big impact on me. When I first arrived there, I was really excited and fascinated about the huge range of halal options everywhere, even Japanese food and snacks and even Japanese convenience stores. But what has really stayed with me was how kind the local people were. There was also a beautiful mix of religions and families from different backgrounds, all sharing and enjoying different cultures and traditions. I also had the chance to meet one of my husband's close friends who is from Malaysia, and later that evening, his friend's family surprised us with an invitation to have dinner. It was the first time I had a meal together with a Muslim family, and I had a really nice time with them. They were all very faithful and extremely friendly, and I could see their respect towards an individual's faith. They taught me about Islam in a way that was fun to explore and through their own example, rather than trying to explain or force any ideas onto me. And just like this Muslim man I had just met, I saw how peaceful their lives were without the things I had always thought were essential for a happy life. Surprisingly, I even enjoyed the whole trip without alcohol. The more I learned and experienced, and the more Muslims I met, Islam felt less exotic and more familiar. And the peaceful and heartwarming time even made me think that My life would open up and be even more exciting if I could belong to this global community. So now that I had a better sense and experience of life among Muslims, I was left to answer a fundamental question about my beliefs. Who or what is God? In Japan, most people visit shrines and temples, but our image and description of God or gods is very vague. You can find people with different beliefs. Some people see the divine as spirits, some as nature itself. Others believe in many gods, consciously or even unconsciously. In Islam, the description of God or Allah is quite clear. One God with no partners or equals. But at the same time, Islam teaches that we cannot have full knowledge of God. Because God has no equal, there is nothing we can compare God to. Reflecting on my own beliefs, I realized that even though I have always sensed the presence of many spirits or kami-sama, I have also felt there was one divine power above everything else. Something close to us, but also beyond our full grasp. So I have come to recognize our 8 million gods could really be understood as the beautiful spirits and creations in this world, while one supreme creator stands above them all. When I came to this point, suddenly I didn't feel this Islamic concept of one God or Allah contradicted my roots. In a way, it has given me some organization. As I said, in Japan, people's beliefs in God or gods can vary, so I might be a rare case. But at least for me, I didn't see any conflict between what Islam teaches about God and what I had always held in my heart deep down. Allah's presence has always surrounded me, and I live in this world together with beautiful spirits. Of course, accepting Islam also meant learning a whole new way of living. While Allah has always been there, it felt like I was suddenly told that, oh, Asuka, actually God said no pork, no alcohol, meat should be halal, and 5 prayers per day. I was like, oh, seriously? Why didn't anyone tell me until now? Honestly, it's not easy to adjust my understandings for what is right and what is wrong. It takes a lot of learning. So for that part, I can only adjust myself step by step. But Alhamdulillah, as a very first step in any way, I was getting ready to become Muslim. The decision to become Muslim wasn't an easy one. Even before making it, I knew that telling my family and close friends would be another challenge. Because in Japan, religion can be a sensitive topic. It's not common to discuss religious views in daily conversation. So I assumed bringing this up was not going to be simple. As you could imagine, there are very few opportunities to meet Muslims in Japan. So I couldn't be sure what others would think about it, or whether their opinion of me would change. For me, this social impact was a very high hurdle to overcome psychologically. So before I could be ready to make this decision, I really wanted to talk with my parents. It was important for me to explain that I wasn't changing or losing my identity. But in a funny way, I think they were more surprised that I would be getting married so soon. As I explained, in Japan, it's a lot more common to date for a long time before considering marriage. My parents eventually said, well, we trust you, Asuka, so if you are happy, we are happy. Just let us know what is prohibited so we can help you avoid it. Oh, by the way, does he drink alcohol? So you can see how little my parents knew about Muslims. But anyway, I'm really blessed to have had their support from the very beginning. The reactions from my friends were what surprised me most, because their reactions were all different. Most of my friends in Europe were worried about me, especially when I said I need to be Muslim to get married with this guy. Many of them had even dated Muslim men before, and they warned me about the difficulties they experienced. So clearly it doesn't always work out well. I appreciated their frank advices too. My friends and colleagues in Japan were surprised and worried as well, but they were curious at the same time because they've had very limited exposure to Muslims. I was glad they gave me a chance to share what I learned so far and what I was going through and struggling with. These conversations also helped me discover something beautiful, that sharing my journey was also helping to give an opportunity to others to share their own. In one interesting example, I told a colleague that I was thinking to revert, and she opened up and shared with me for the first time that she's actually a Christian. We had worked together for a while, but we had never once talked about our own faith. Another time, when I met with a high school friend I've known for almost 20 years, she also left me completely surprised. It turned out that she was familiar with Islam and had attended a dinner at the masjid in Tokyo with a Japanese Muslim friend from university. She even had her own thoughts about reverting herself. I would never have imagined he was someone I would known for a very long time, but I didn't know this part of her at all. These conversations taught me that I had been carrying around so many assumptions about what people would think. The truth was more complicated and more beautiful. By opening up, I learned that the people around me had their own quiet curiosities, their own faith, their own stories they had simply never had the chance to share. After those conversations, and after months of learning, I know I was ready. I went to the masjid in Tokyo, and the Turkish imam guided me through the shahadah, a declaration of faith. The imam also read a small prayer asking for mercy and guidance. The moment itself was simple, a little similar to Japanese minimalism style, where the most beautiful, meaningful things don't need extra decoration because there is a beauty in its simplicity. In fact, although this moment was an official declaration, I think the real journey had already happened in everything that had come before. From my reflections about God, the conversations in Malaysia, meeting my husband, and the many years of life I've lived in Japan and abroad. Every experience has built on top of the ones that come before it. By the time I went to masjid and said my shahadah, it was already accepted in my heart. Since becoming Muslim, I have found that I've broken down barriers that I hadn't noticed existed. In the past, when I had Muslim classmates or colleagues abroad, there was always like a wall. I didn't know how much I could ask them, and I felt they lived in a world I could never understand. And of course, the negative images in the news and media gives a false impression of Muslim people and families across the world. But since I became a Muslim, this psychological wall has started to disappear. Suddenly, Muslim strangers in the street are sisters and brothers for me. I've now met with Muslims at work, at the bouldering gym, or in the neighborhood. I talk about faith, about drinking or not drinking, about life. I can't imagine having such a conversations before. I'd say my network and experience of the world has expanded more than I could have imagined. I used to think that being Muslim was something foreign, but now I understand it is a mistake to reduce Muslims into a single category or group. Islam actually represents a very broad and diverse group of 2 billion people, and Muslims came from many different identities and cultures. In my own experience, my Muslim friends from Germany are quite different to my friends in Malaysia, who are different to my Muslim friends in Iran, and they are different to the Muslims I know in the UK. But what unites us all is a shared belief about God, which I found very beautiful. And I'm starting to appreciate that rather than becoming something foreign by reverting, I am adding to who I already was. I can't lose my Japanese identity because that is who I already am. I'm inspired by all my Muslim friends around the world who have preserved and integrated their own cultures and identities alongside their Islamic faith. And it is my journey to explore the Japanese and Islamic ways of life and travel on the roads that they meet. Alhamdulillah, I am grateful to God for the guidance and the blessing. Thank you for listening my story. This has been my most challenging video to talk about because of its personal nature and the fact it is impossible to talk about all of the things that led to this moment. But I am thankful to you for all your support. It is always amazing to see comments from all around the world, and I always enjoy reading the stories you share. I look forward to seeing you soon, inshallah. Until next time, Matane!